On today's show, it is a Locked On Padres and Locked On Rockies extravaganza crossover for Fun Friday. Myself and Paul Holden, who is to my left, right, whatever, doesn't matter. We're going to be talking about this weekend's series between the Padres and Rockies, which in theory shouldn't always be a series, but for some reason, the Padres struggle against the Rockies. We'll talk about that, talk about some pitching matchups, the trade deadline hangover for both of these teams. It's going to be a fun one that you don't want to miss. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres and Locked On Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Friday, August 2nd. As always, I am one of your hosts, with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can check out my other baseball-related work over at Just Baseball and my other podcast, Baseball versus the World, for fun, evergreen topics. But I'm not the only host today. Oh, no. Of course not, folks. I only want to have crossovers with the coolest people. That's how we work over at Locked On. Mm-hmm. And thankfully at Locked On, we have only the coolest people, even if their teams are not always very cool. I'm being joined by the host of Locked On Rockies, Mr. Paul Holden, at Paul Holden 33 on Twitter. Sir, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I'm doing well, but you brought up the trade deadline. That hasn't happened yet, right? That's still gonna exist. The Rockies are gonna do something, right?
I do believe that the good folks at Colorado, substances, maybe they've just forgot. You know what I mean? Maybe they forgot. Maybe there's a lot of big movies out. It's totally possible. That movie Trap with M. Night Shyamalan. I know that comes out today, and the deadline was maybe previously, but still, maybe they were buying.
And Shyamalan, you never know. There's always a twist.
There's always a twist. Maybe they were buying tickets. They thought that it was on Tuesday or whatever it is. But no, in all seriousness, guys, today's episode is brought to you, though, by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Daily. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And getting started with this pod, man, I mean, let's talk about the trade deadline. I mean, that's been the big thing. We're only going to milk it out, folks. Don't worry, at least for the rest of this week. It's kind of what we got to do. But for the Rockies, I think that for the Padres, it is so funny for Padres fans probably to hear this because they are the team that everyone's like, yeah, they'll make a trade. Are they going to necessarily trade for Luis Robert and Mike Trout? No, but they always make some sort of crazy trade, as you saw with giving up their number 3 overall prospect for Tanner Scott, who's a rental, by the way, and then all the prospects they gave up for Jason Adam, and then earlier in the season for Luis Arraez and Dylan Cease, all that sort of stuff. And then there are the Rockies, who I don't know exactly what they did, and I feel like we're on like year 5 of them not really doing too much at the trade deadline, despite being a rebuilding team. What do you think, Paul? Illustrate us.
It's an interesting position, right? Because initially, right now in my gut, I want to just go nuclear, classic, rant, rave, and all this stuff. But I do zoom it out a little bit and I ask truly, what was the market for the Colorado Rockies players in this season? Elias Diaz, prime example. 2 calf injuries and also a plummet in performance from where he started the season off back on an all-star pace, but a bad stretch sunk that ship. But you have a top prospect in Drew Romo. Why hang on to Jacob Stallings, who's a serviceable backup to anybody that I'm sure I saw some crazy trades, Javier, and it wasn't just the Padres, and some crazy hauls. Who got Kikuchi and what did they give up for him? It's like, and I brought that up on my own pod, and I know I shouldn't just bring up the one example, but it is like, that's the head scratcher, because it's like, yes, in reality, the Rockies didn't have, I bet, a lot of enticing pieces that were really going to knock people's socks up outside of Ryan McMahon, but the team said they did right by Rymack and kept him on the team like they said they would. And that was the thing. And you can, comment on that as all you want and such, but Rymack isn't kind of the weird enigma that these other players are. Like Brendan Rodgers is a prime example. Are you going to extend Brendan Rodgers after his last year of arbitration next year? Because he's never hit the ceiling of where he's supposed to be, but he's still he's a Gold Glove second baseman that, especially in the back half of the season, can hit the ball well. So it's just a matter of I try to put that context on it. But this team's going to lose 100 games for back-to-back seasons. And Bill Schmidt, the GM, comes out and says that they just need to see more from their guys. We've heard that same answer for 5 years. We've heard the same answer time and time again. And it's just, I don't need to watch Jake Cave take at bats in September. I don't need to. I need to watch the young next guys up for the Rockies, and they didn't free up any space. And so I'm incredibly disappointed as a Rockies fan. I'm really bummed, especially as I sit here and I watch the Padres yet again be the most exciting trading team in baseball, who are always going to do something cool and add cool play. You mentioned that they might not get the big fish. I don't think that's true. The Padres set a headline deal every year and every trade deadline. They're not ever since the Padres did that big buy-in all those years ago with Machado and all those, bringing all of them in and really changing the narrative about them. They've always done stuff in the trade market. And I know it hasn't worked out, but they've always been trying. And so I'm really just sitting here really wondering, how does the inactivity at the trade deadline make the Rockies better in the long run? And I really don't see a big path at how this helps the Rockies in the long run. Now, I will give credit. The 2 deals the Rockies did make, they moved 2 relievers, middle of the road relievers. They got a decent prospect haul back, including a couple of one that's in the top 30, I believe, from the Brewers. I'm prospects and stuff kind of moves fast for me, so I'm not always great, but those are good. But you couldn't do the same for Cal Quantrill, Brendan Rodgers, Austin Gunn. I mean, these pieces aren't going to, more often than not, at least 4 out of 5 players you could have traded at the trade deadline will not be with the Rockies after next season. So maybe it's an offseason deal. Maybe it's a next year's trade deadline deal. But so much can happen in between there. Can you really afford to do that? And so to circle it back fully, I don't have faith in the Rockies organization getting more out of their players, because they haven't shown it with certain players that specifically need it. Brenton Doyle and Ezekiel Tovar are your exceptions this year. They've been incredible and exceptional. I mean, Brenton Doyle especially. Like, if you look at Brenton Doyle turnaround, that is an underrated sports story. That guy went from just the Gold Glove flashy thing to, like, there's a case that Brenton Doyle is in the elite center fielder categories in all of.
I agreed.
So. I know that's kind of a long-winded thing, but that's kind of where I'm at as a Rockies fan. I'm still looking for the actual path. I'm looking for what are we doing to get back to the playoffs? I didn't get an answer to that.
Absolutely, man. And he's not kidding. Brenton Doyle has been great. He's 12th in F4 among all players in National League. Like, he's been fantastic. But I feel like, just from the outsider, like, it's amazing how these teams are the antithesis of each other at the deadline. The only times that the Padres have had, quote unquote, like, light deadlines is maybe the Adam Frazier year, because yes, I understand that in the moment that was a big trade, but everyone was kind of like, guys, there's no way that dude's keeping it up. But in fairness, that was still an all-star player and all that stuff. Right. So it was still a
name. It's a name. People knew the name Adam Frazier.
It's a name. And then I think the only time, honestly, would be prior to the 2022 season. This is when they, like, made Nick Martinez additions and Jorge Alfaro additions. They kind of didn't do much. And then they made up for it because they traded for Juan Soto at the deadline. But it's nuts. And for me, look, I got love for the Rockies because apparently Colorado is all about vibes, and they're always top level in attendance, even when they're going to lose 100 games. I feel like a great encapsulation with this team is just, if you literally just look at some of the free agent signings they've made. Because they've spent money in some areas, but it's always weird that you trade Arenado, then you sign Chris Bryant. And then also, I still haven't forgotten, because I was in a group chat with people who were laughing their butts off when they extended Daniel Bard. That was weird. A 37-year-old closer, amazing story. Let me be very clear. Amazing story. I believe won comeback player of the year or something like that. Amazing story. Awesome. But that's the type of player that you flip at the deadline and get, like, a couple prospects. And by the way, look at the deadline this year, where a lot of relievers go. And a lot of relievers went for a lot. I just mentioned with the Padres, they trade their top remaining pitching prospect for a half season of Tanner Scott. Now, do they plan on extending him? Maybe. I don't know exactly the plan. Maybe they're planning on extending some of their starters. I don't know. But bottom line is, this was a seller's market. So I think it's got to be at least a little bit discouraging for a seller's market to be out here, and the Rockies, as well as I think the Angels being another team, just kind of sat there. I do want to congratulate you, though. I don't think you have as many bad vibes as the Angels. So I do want to congratulate you on that. That seems to be the most clueless team in all of baseball, and it seems like their only purpose is to waste Mike Trout. So congratulations to them on that.
Oh God, man, and rest in peace to Mike Trout's knees on that one.
Yeah, seriously.
The news coming out. I'm a Mike Trout guy. I'm a hate to see that type of thing, but yeah, I mean that's the thing. The Rockies get that weird thing because they're a clubhouse that's tight. Like they you know, and that extends to I mean. It's been frustrating. I mean, I don't know, man.
He has nothing. He can't even speak.
Well, because here's the thing. Like, the vibes with the Rockies are always high, right? Mm-hmm. But the vibes with actual, like, the Rockies fans I know, like, actual Rockies fans, people that do, like, that really care about this team and know what it can be, I don't think they could be lower, man. Like, I got people that I know with season tickets that have considered selling that wow. And these are season ticket holders since the beginning. These aren't people that got in the Arenado. I mean, I'm talking people that followed from the Blake Street Bombers era. And so I don't know, you know, too, Javi, like I sit here, I'm in my little chair. I play outside the park baseball. I'm not a GM. I don't really know the ins and outs, but I really do think the Rockies did not, especially when Bill Schmidt could have set the different tone in his tenure. Last year, he made 7 deals. I mean, and the Rockies traded away a huge chunk of the roster last year. It was a completely different roster to finish the year. And now, you know, I'm looking at this. Here's the roster for the lineup for the final game against the Angels. That's going on right now as we're recording. Blackmon, Tovar, Doyle, McMahon, Rogers, Tolia, Cave, Stallings, Hilliard. I can count 4 names on there that might not be on the Rockies after next season. I mean, and so if there isn't a trade, if there isn't that, I guess I got to hope for some sort of comp pick, but I don't think Jake Cave is giving the Rockies any sort of comp pick if he leaves in free agency.
No, he is not. But Paul, let me tell you about a place that is going to give you something for when you spend your time with them. And that is the good folks over at FanDuel, folks. Here's the thing. I love sports. I love them so much. I want them every day, but sometimes they're not available every day. I know you've got, the Team USA. You can root for them, and you've still got baseball. But all in all, there's no basketball, no NHL, no WNBA, no NFL, no NCAA, all that stuff, unless you play the game. But regardless, FanDuel has you covered, guys, because FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up some bets when I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a bonus boost daily. A boost or a bonus, whatever terminology you prefer. Every day, there's something for everyone all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Oh, but that's not all, folks. I also got to talk to you about not exactly betting, but betting on yourself in the terms of just betting that you will take care of yourself. I mean, gosh, because these things are difficult. And that is the skilled trades, folks. It's not as easy as, oh, yeah, look at you. You know how to order a little, sandwich from DoorDash or whatever. Nah, this ain't that, man. You can't just order anything. Supply House, though, they have you covered when it comes to your plumbing, HVAC, electrical products, all sorts of stuff in that regard. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, don't worry. You can get some expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. Real people, by the way. No robot nonsense. Don't worry. And pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros who have already been benefiting from their membership at SupplyHouse.com/GM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies. Electrical supplies.
Surprise with your electric.
Yeah. I mean, that might be a little bit too much for some people. Electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service with Supply House. We love you. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on Locked On Padres, Locked On Rockies, crossover extravaganza for Friday. Hey, man. I feel you on that. I feel on all that. The Rockies have just been very weird, but let me tell you something. They're really good against us. For whatever reason, we've been talking about this for years now. The only year since at least I've been hosting this podcast is 2020. That seems to be the last year in which the Padres really they played against the Rockies the way that they should play against the Rockies, a good team with World Series aspirations against a team that is still rebuilding. And instead, basically every year, with the exception of 2020, they've been pretty poor. I do find it ironic that the year that the Padres were like the least clutch team in the history of baseball, they were good against the Rockies, and that's last year. But this year they are 2-5 against them. So this is still a matchup, unfortunately. This is absolutely still a thing to look out for. And it stinks because all of a sudden, all the momentum, man, Padre land, we're feeling ourselves. You just came off of a really great, I think they won like 8 out of 9 games. And then they went in and they not only, here's what they did. You know the movie The Karate Kid?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what the Padres did to the Dodgers, right? And Daniel LaRusso, of course, a little bit of a Dodgers fan, so it matches up. They just followed him out back, and they just kicked the crap out of him. You know what I mean? We'll ignore what happens after that in that movie to fit this analogy. But in terms of that, that's kind of what the Padres have done. But it worries me because I've actually got like a couple messages that are like, hey, man, upcoming schedule looks good. The Padres play the Rockies, then they play the Pirates, then they play the Marlins, then the Pirates, then the Rockies again. And my thing is, but that stupid CR in purple, that dinger dinosaur, that little smug mofo, you know what I mean? And unlike past Rockies teams, at least it does feel like that there are genuinely good players. And I'm not saying players who are only good against the Padres. CJ Cron, I don't believe, is in the vicinity, thank God. But they have Brenton Doyle, they have Ezequiel Tovar. Ryan McMahon is elevated to at least being above average offensive player. Jacob Stallings is actually hitting the ball pretty decent this year, 111 WRC plus in 58 games. Your boy, Nolan Jones, seems to have not worked, and Chris Bryant seems to have not worked. So as much as they've gotten some breakouts from some players, it seems that they have not in other areas. But who are some players that you think that the Padres should look out for, whether it be pitching or position players?
Well, the pitching will be interesting. I don't know in this series because he just pitched. Will we see Kyle Freeland in this series at the end of it? Maybe. He just pitched last night, so I don't think so. But what version of Cal Quantrill are you going to get? Are you going to get the version of Cal Quantrill that's been elite and great at certain points in this year? Are you going to get the last month and change of Cal Quantrill, which might be a reason why Cal Quantrill is still on the Rockies this year and after the trade deadline and not there. Because the back half of the rotation is not great for the Rockies. The bullpen for the Rockies don't have a closer. Really, they haven't established anybody. Justin Lawrence, unfortunately, a Rocky I was very excited for this year, has underperformed, and that's putting it lightly. Tyler Kinley hasn't been great either. And you mentioned Daniel Bard was supposed to finish off that contract this year, but season-ending and probably career-ending injury before the season even started.
I cannot believe they extended him
there.
And he was hurt. Many teams wanted him at the deadline, and they were like, "No, we like our 37-year-old closer."
Yeah, and there's
I really think that explains the Rockies situation very well. I really do.
It does. But I'll tell you what you'll probably see, and something that might surprise you here, a name that will probably pop up here and there because he's an interesting case. Because he's got a lot of Schwarber in him in the fact that he doesn't do much on offense, but then he'll hit home runs. His name's Michael Toia. He's the Rockies' new everyday first baseman, as Chris Bryant apparently will go back into the outfield after tweaking his back. Who really knows what they'll do with Chris Bryant? He's not in the lineup tonight, so he might DH. It's really weird. The Chris Bryant situation is only getting more and more complicated. But Michael Toia, he is someone that was looking to break into this Rockies roster, looking to. He's a guy that it was running out of chances. It was like, you got to show us something, but can switch hit from both sides of the dish, and like I said, he might not have a great batting average, but his OPS is pretty solid, and he's a guy that hits bombs. He is a Rockies leader in hitting home runs. I believe he's had 10 home runs since July 5th. Going through this month, as the Rockies hit 41 home runs in the month of July. 11 of those were hit by Brenton Doyle, by the way, in case you were curious about that. Let me see. I think he's in the game. Tolia's OPS is 780. His batting average is 210. So it's is he going to go? He'll probably go like 2 for 12 in the series, but he'll hit a 3-run bomb that as we talked about with these two teams, that'll probably change the momentum late in the 7th inning off of a closer that has, or a relief guy that probably hasn't given up much as it kind of usually aligns for it. But the biggest thing I think that will be why I think the Padres could be in the driver's seat and again and could dominate this series, especially with how hot they've been, is they're playing in San Diego. The Rockies suck on the road. I mean, and that's harsh language, but no. The Rockies suck on the road. The Rockies this season are let's hold on. I got to get the actual number here for you, please, real quick, because it's bad. It's really, really bad. They have 15 wins on the road this year.
Okay,
that's it. And, and so there's a reason why they're 39-70. So it's a huge issue for this team. They're playing the Angels. They've been showing a little pop here, but San Francisco. I mean, the Rockies had no offense in San Francisco. I know San Diego and San Francisco are different, but this is a road trip for the Rockies, and that's always going to be a negative for them. So, but keep your eyes out for that Michael Toia home run. Especially, we're talking FanDuel. Might be an interesting prop for you to keep your eye on.
Hey, man, they stick on the road. I want you to guess where 3 of those wins came against. The San Diego Padres, sweeping them after the Padres had just won on Sunday night ESPN national televised baseball. They got swept, including a last game in which they lost 8-0. And I don't know if it was the same series when the Padres bullpen exploded. You might remember this. I believe you messaged me about this. I think it was like 9-4 and they blew the game. I forgot exactly which game this was, but that was a nightmare. Look, I 100% get what you're saying. And Cal Quantrill, former Padre, I will say, was his little jab that we can't repeat on air towards that one fellow from the Red Sox, Reese McGuire, was that the highlight of the Rockies season?
It's definitely, I mean, it's definitely one of them. I mean, talk about a haymaker, bro. I mean, I got the full bread. It was a crazy story, and it was also just like the Rockies put up 20 in that game too, so that was cool. But honestly, though, to say the highlight, I think Brenton Doyle's the highlight. I I think he is the best Rockies storyline out of all of them. That turnaround's phenomenal, and Ezekiel. And the one thing you do got to give the Rockies credit for, they developed another shortstop because Tovar's legit too.
Well,
but the Padres, I mean, I know we gotta take a break. So Javi,
no, you're good.
after the break, I want you to let me know, at least you're talking vibes here. And vibes for the Padres are good. Great deadline. Dominating the Dodgers. NL West might be looking a little different at the end of the season if the curse can get lifted, because Padres could Padre, because we know how that can happen.
Look, here's the thing. I don't like talking smack about people when they're not here. Jeff Snyder, great host over at Locked On Dodgers. But we're going to do it in just a second, guys. We're absolutely going to do it in just a second. But first, I got to talk to you about something that's going to keep you nice and cool and refreshed. That is one of our new sponsors of the show, our good friends over at Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, I should say, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV. This is popsicle firecracker flavor. I don't know why that flavor name is hard for me to read sometimes, but popsicle firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brands in America, because baseball and summer, they go hand in hand, just like Liquid IV when it comes to indulgence and just enriching hydration. The good folks over at Liquid IV. Go check it out, guys. What can I say? Blast off with some of the iconic flavors of popsicle firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon, lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. And they've got all sorts of other flavors. They've got lemon lime, pina colada, acai berry, everything. You know what I mean? If you guys remember the Built Bar back in the day, they got a little bit of that vibe going on. They got plenty of flavors for you. Whatever floats your boat, we aren't going to judge you. Powered by LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. I mean, I can imagine you're listening to this ad already. You're like, wow, yeah, I just wake up, pour the glass of water, throw it in there, shake it around, and then go about my day. That's right. Forget Starbucks, you basic fools out there. Forget all the coffees and the, what else do people have when they, because I genuinely just have water. Tea. There we go. That's another thing. So whatever you want, guys, go check that out. This is for you. No more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's right, 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Don't say we never gave you any free deals and bonuses. Liquid IV, guys, go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are thriving and vibing into the last segment of this show, and we got to talk about the NL West and a little bit of pitching matchups, man. Talked about this on my show yesterday. I'm curious to see what you hear from afar, but here's my thing. I tell people this a lot. I am a believer when it comes to sports in positive regression to the mean. Eventually, stuff's got to break out. Basically, it's a more obnoxious way of saying broken clocks right twice a day, all that sort of stuff. The Dodgers have won this division a lot of times. Let's leave it at that. I don't want to go through the exact number, but it's been a long time since anyone has beaten the Dodgers for the NL West crown. Now, everybody under the sun, including, probably your local high school team, has beaten the Dodgers in the playoffs, but that's not what we're talking about right now. The way that they beat the Dodgers, they are 7-3, the Padres against them this year. It might be possible, and I will say, in fairness to the Dodgers, a lot of injuries too. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman wasn't available for this series. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who for some reason can't pitch well against the Dodgers, but still really big asset for them. Walker Buehler wasn't the same, came back, he's back on the IL. Bobby Miller, I'm pretty sure, is on the IL for them. I don't know. There's probably some other players there too. It's basically been a little bit Ohtani reliant, and I think low key, the Dodgers at the deadline had to add a lot of players, like your Kevin Kiermaiers and all that. Mm-hmm. I really think that it was a case of, man, we're going to make the playoffs for sure, but it's slipping a little bit. All of a sudden, the Padres are right on their heels. Paul, do you think it can be done? What the many people, the philosophers, the sages of Locked On, they said it was impossible. It can't be done. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think it's going to come down to how the Padres play the Rockies. Play Arizona. I mean, at 7-3, we have seen time and time again that Padres can beat the Dodgers. They can beat. They did it in the playoffs. They do it in the regular season. But the Padres have to beat the Rockies. I mean, that's that they can't afford to. Like we said, they got 7 games coming up, or is it 6? 7 or 6 games, whatever it is. The 2-3-game sets are a 3 and a 4, whatever they are. Mm-hmm. But they can't afford to go under 5. They can't afford to drop 4 out of 7 to the Rockies. Like that will matter when you're looking at the standings right now. Say the Rockies sweep and San Diego goes and the Dodgers win. The Padres go from 4.5 back to 7.5 back in middle of August is creeping up and like you said, they're injured, but what's going to happen, as we usually know, they're probably going to get better right towards the end of the season, and we'll see if their pitching can hang on there. But I think there's a path. But for the Padres to be the ones, they gotta handle the rest of the NL West. I mean, I think San Francisco is still looming. They're a team I never count out until the end. They can and they want to be a wild card team. They don't care about the win in the division.
Honestly, you know what? I'm going to count them out.
And I wish I could be with you, but the Giants dominate the Rockies so thoroughly that I can't sit there and even say it. In case you're curious, the Rockies are 24 games back of the NL West East. So probably not going to make that not make that up. But San Francisco at 9.5, but Arizona's still at 5, and Arizona once again has been quiet at the middle part of the season, and they're above 500. And if their bullpen stops blowing games late, and they can get things to iron out, they're going to be interesting. But yes, I do think the Padres are capable of doing it because they beat the Dodgers. The question will be, can the Padres avoid Padreing and beat the bad teams? Can they not only go be successful in this stretch of a schedule that you mentioned, Javier, but dominate this schedule? Couple of sweeps, 80% win percentage in this series for the Padres, or this next stretch for them against subpar teams. So, and that's what the Padres haven't shown us they could do, which is a thing that you got to. It is an interesting thing, but the deadline acquisitions are great. The vibes around the Padres are great. Oh, yeah. They've been a team that's, history has not treated well. So like you said, this might be the time where the stopped clock is right. And it is for the Padres, because I got no doubts about them taking on the Dodgers in the playoffs, because I'm going to doubt that. I will never doubt regular season Dodgers, but until
Rockies,
like we've talked about,
the Rockies
never,
can win a playoff series against them. The Rockies can win a playoff series against them. I think that it's really important to note, the reason I'm counting out the Giants is because I really think low key that them not trading Blake Snell. I know that I was trying to start the meme of sending him back to the Padres because I just think that would have been hilarious. I really think that's going to bite them in the butt. I don't know what that team's plan is. Mm-hmm. And it's getting to the point where I'm like, at least I feel like the Rockies are like, all right, we're rebuilding. I don't know what the Giants are doing. They don't have a very good farm. They traded away Jorge Soler. They traded away Alex Cobb. I don't really see what they're doing. And I think Blake Snell, if he shoves for the rest of the season like he tends to do, he's going to opt out. He's going to sign another contract with someone else. I'm telling you that they're a mess right now. But anyway, I think it's interesting because the Mets, they bought at the deadline. The Cardinals, they bought at the deadline. The Pirates, they bought at the deadline a tiny bit. You still got the Braves. You still got the D-backs. So outside of the obvious teams, I think that this is going to be like a real race at the end. And I think you're right. They just can't afford it. And that's what they've been doing all year. The Padres, I just mentioned before that when they got swept by the Rockies, and it's not an insult. It's just that the amount of sweeps that they've had to mediocre teams following a great series is what put them in a hole for much of this season until the recent run. Now they've obviously improved. Their bullpen being much better is huge. They don't have to rely on your 4.5 ERA guys like Enyel De Los Santos and Stephen Kolek in high leverage. Instead, if they have to, if Randy Vasquez is bad in this Friday start, if he could just go 4 innings, it's like, you know what? We're okay with using one of our better relievers because we have so many now with the acquisitions of Jason Adam, of even Brian Hoeing, and then, of course, Tanner Scott. I think this can be big. They brought up, look out for Alec Jacob, Rockies fans. He is one of the Padres' like top reliever type prospects, and he's been awesome so far, generating a crap ton of whiffs. So that's really exciting. That's going to be their advantage. I really think that the bullpen can help them out big time in this series.
If they got strikeout potential, if the Padres pitching, and maybe this can segue into our pitching matchups. If the Padres pitching staff, relievers or starters, are effective at strikeouts and hitting their spots, the Rockies will strike out 10 times. The Rockies are at top 3 in baseball in strikeouts. Only I believe like the Mariners and I can't remember one other team is ahead of them. This team swings, not only swings, but swings and misses. They're very aggressive. So young guys that can strike people out, that's right up the alley for dominating the Rockies right there.
Absolutely, man. And also, like you said before, can't really hit on the road. They have the 3rd worst WRC plus in Major League Baseball, with only the Marlins and the White Sox being worse. So congrats to them on that. And then in batting average, they're the 2nd worst in Major League Baseball. So when it comes to on the road, this is the time to strike the Rockies. First matchup is Austin Gomber, the legend of the Nolan Arenado trade, versus the aforementioned Randy Vasquez. This game might get wild. Randy Vasquez not very good.
I would say take the over in every single game. It's Rockies Padres. it's late in the summer. I see there being three games of 6+ runs. It's going to be I think the bullpens are going to be busy in these ones.
We'll have to see, man. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Saturday's starter is set to be Michael King. And on my app, at least, it says Austin Gomber again. So I'm not sure. Do we know who the starter is for the Rockies?
That's a good question, because Herman Marquez was back, but unfortunately back on the IL there. So might be a call up. There could be there could be someone maybe coming up there, but the rotation's in a little weirdness right now.
Hey, but I'll tell you one thing. Michael King got kind of tuned up by the Rockies twice this year. And it's weird because Michael King has been low-key turning into a fringe type of ace lately. So I'm curious to see if his 3rd time facing the Rockies, he can do a lot better. And then Sunday, we've got unknown who exactly is going to be the starter. The Padres recently optioned Adam Mazur back to the minors, so I'm not totally sure what this is going to be. Maybe a surprise announcement of Joe Musgrove. I remember them saying, I haven't heard any update on that, so we don't know exactly what the starters are going to be for Sunday. But yeah, I mean, the Padres, this isn't one of those things where you compare both teams, right? Like, this is not one of those situations. They're basically in every facet. Even before the deadline, the Padres are better. This is a series that they should, at the very minimum, win. And at the very, very minimum, you cannot get swept, because then all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball for what feels like the 85th time. You don't want that. It's really frustrating, man. It's so weird that we can't play you guys. I've never understood this. I will say with Colorado, nope. they're not that good defensively either. I was going to say that they're okay.
They got, I mean, Brenton Doyle is an elite center fielder.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan Rodgers is a great defensive first baseman. I mentioned Michael Toia. He's got gold in his glove potential there at first. He is compared to Todd Helton defensively, and that's very high praise. And Ryan McMahon. There are really great defenders, but you hit the ball at Jake Cave, and it's a different story.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with the Padres, where you've got Ha-Seong Kim, and then you've got you know what I mean? That it gets a little bit weird. You've got Ha-Seong Kim playing good defense. Kyle Higashioka has been great behind the plate. One of the big surprises of the team. Jake Cronenworth is good at first base. Xander Bogaerts recently came back. He's been good for the most part at second base, but not elite. Merrill, solid, but not elite. And Tatis is currently out. And even when he wasn't out, he didn't exactly all the metrics. He wasn't having a platinum glove season the same way that he was last year. So these teams are very similar in that regard. But for the most part, they got to win, man. All you have to do is win. We're going to see how it pans out. I am very nervous because this team hates us. Everyone turns into Bonds. Don't you, and again, maybe I'm being biased. Doesn't it feel like they turn into a different team against the Padres?
Oh, yeah.
Am I crazy? Like, it really does.
The only team that I don't hate watching the Rockies play in the NL West is the Padres, because I used to be Arizona because they were bad, but now it's like Arizona is like a fun modern baseball team that does like a bunch of stuff I wish the Rockies did. So now it's like, hey, they're playing the Padres. So in reality, who knows? Because history has favored the Rockies certainly, and it is one of the weirdest things that really does impact the Padres season. I think you can go back all of this competitive window, the hyped up Padres seasons, and you can point, hey, if they didn't go on this stretch against the Rockies, they could have done this. They might have won the division. They could have done, X, Y, Z. The Rockies have been always a pain in the side of the Padres.
And it's not just a one-year thing. That's why it's weird. You're going to find every year a bad team that does well against them. Guess what? The A's, I'm pretty sure they had a positive record against the Rangers last year. Like, it happens every year. But what's weird is this year, the Padres are 2-5 against the Rockies. We'll ignore last year. 2022 against the Rockies. Let me just check really quickly to make sure I get it right. They were 9-10 against the Rockies. Okay, so they weren't like super below 500, but even still, what are you doing here? And then in 2021 against the Rockies, once again, they underperformed. They were 8-11 against them. It's just so weird that every year, it's usually a one-off. Not with this team, man. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's in their head or something. We'll see if that continues this weekend, though. But for now, Paul, that's about enough discussing this series, previewing it. Always a blast having you on. What would you like to plug for the good people out there, if anything?
Check out Locked On Rockies on your favorite YouTube. We are on the quest to 1,000 YouTube subscribers, and we actually had we had a Padres fan actually come and say he was looking forward to this crossover. I don't have the name in front of me, but was excited and gave us the sub. So we are on the quest for 1,000 YouTube subscribers by the end of the season. So if you want to keep tabs on your NOS little brother, go subscribe to Locked On Rockies and check us out there. You can find me on Twitter at Paul Holden 33 as well, but I really don't do much on there other than baseball, Mario version, and Rockies baseball talk. So you can find me there as well.
All right. And you guys can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, or at @LO_Padres for updates on the show. Until the next time, stay faithful, my Fire Faithful homies, and stay cool, my Colorado Rocky brethren. Until next time, take care.